So, Carl, from your compliments about my choice of the only picture I could find of you in a suit, you had a pretty good start to 2020. Just give us the overview of who Carl Wong is and why is Carl Wong on the projector behind us.
Actually, I bought that jacket for a conference I had to go to, a client conference in Las Vegas, and they made me put a pocket square in for that picture. That's the only time in my entire life I've ever had a thing in my pocket in a jacket suit, and now it's in the public domain in quite a large way. Everybody needs luck. Everybody needs a slice of luck. And I had a massive slice of luck, which was, we did a deal for LivingLens, which I'm sure I'll talk more about, which is the company that we built over 6 and a bit years. We did a deal for a client of ours to buy that. That deal closed on the 19th of February, 2020, 4 weeks before the world changed forever. And if it would have been if that deal would have took another 20 days, maybe, it wouldn't have happened. And they've told me that straight up since. They would have pulled the plug, they would have seen this happening to everybody's forecasts, and it would have been done. But we got it done, so that's why I'm here. Just saying that now, genuinely, just saying that now, I've just got like goosebumps, just saying that. So everybody needs luck. The harder you work, the luckier you get. But everybody needs luck, so that's why I'm here. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's quite the tale. And what is LivingLens then? What is the product and the business?
So I'm a market researcher. I've spent 25 years helping companies improve their products and services through listening and talking to customers. That's basically what I've done. I used to do that for large corporates, large organisations like Rollison Alliance here in Liverpool. I used to run their market research and data functions, and then I built my own market research agency. And lots of market research is about like gathering data, filling in with surveys, and then building pretty charts, and then delivering death by 1,000 PowerPoint slides to a busy, uninterested audience. So the agency that I built was just called Curiosity. We focused on gathering all that data, getting all that feedback. But the job of a market researcher is change management. It's about trying to get senior busy people to listen and do stuff different. Get something on their agenda that isn't there, get them to prioritize that and change something. And that is hard. It's hard getting senior people in large organizations to do stuff different. And that fundamentally is what your market researchers are trying to do. Improve product, services, experiences. So Curiosity gathered all the data, but we always told stories, because stories get people engaged, they get people emotive, they get people listening and leaning in and talking about things. Charts and Excel spreadsheets don't do that. So in Curiosity, we, as well as collecting all the data, we would always take video. We'd do lots of interviews, lots of vox pops, lots of soundbite, tell us about this experience. And we did that so we could make an edited show reel at 3 or 4 minutes to bring the project to life. And that was always the one of our key deliverables. And has anyone ever done any video editing? Come on, you must have done just for like stuff at home or whatever, when you're just putting something together for a party or somebody's birthday or whatever. Right, so to get from this much video to this much interesting video is absolute agony. That process is so time consuming, which is why there isn't a lot more emotive content historically. The world's changing and changing fast, but there isn't a lot of content that drives a lot of change in large organizations. So we set out to solve our own problem. We were spending so much time and energy making these films that were really making a difference. But you needed senior, experienced people doing this edit, and they cost a lot of time and energy and money, and we wanted those people in with clients. So we set out to build a technology to speed up that process. So that started off with, well, you know what, instead of watching the thing, why don't we transcribe everything? All right, so, and where are people getting more emotional? All right, and try and make a little, no clever ideas at that time. But then we thought, well, can we build a technology that might do this for us? And then we started talking to our friends in market research industry, which, remember, I've been in that industry for going on a couple of decades. I'd spent my life at trade shows and conferences and all that business. So we had lots of friends, because you make friends, don't you? You got to spend time at these things. You know, you just come back from being at a conference or being at an event, and you'd have a few of these and you share experiences and you make friends. So we tapped into our network, our friends. What do you think of this as an idea? Which is a terrible way to find out if you've got product market fit, by the way. That's a different thing. We'll come back to that. What do you think of this? Oh, we think that's brilliant. You know, because that's what your friends say, don't they? So we realised through doing that a little bit more formally, we were onto something much bigger than growing a market research consultancy. Because selling brains, which is what selling consultancy is effectively, is hard, and I've been doing it for a while, and we wanted to do something that was going to create real shareholder value, i.e., wealth for the people who are running the business. So we flipped it. There were people in the business who wanted to be market researchers. There were others who wanted to have, certainty and security about their future. And so it started a new business. And there were two of us at the time. Neither of us had any tech experience, but we believed in what we were trying to do. We had really deep domain expertise and a shitload of hustle and a belief in that we could pull it off.
You mentioned a really interesting word there at the start, gathering, which prompted me in my jet lag state to just give a big shout out to our sponsors at Gather, who make our events possible. See, I'm still with it. I'm not gone yet. So that to me, that sort of market research, that's a bit of an alien domain to me. I know about like Mintel, Which on the consumer side. I know a few things like product, PLM, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. What are the, I don't think is anyone in here versed in market research? Like, is that your Edwin's bread and butter? Can you just riff a little bit about what some of the big things, so you mentioned that, it takes a long time to convince these senior people in organizations. Yeah. What's hot in market research right now?
Market research it's been around as long as advertising's been around. That's where it was born from. We all know a bit of market research because we're all bored to death with surveys or people spamming us to try and get us to answer something or stopping you in the street. Right? It's a $40 billion industry and it's growing, and it will continue to do so. About a third of that spend isn't on that type of thing, opinion polling or gathering mass data. It's about deep conversations. It's about depth interviews. It's about semi-structured groups of people talking about a subject matter or testing a product or giving feedback on an experience. And the traditional way of doing that historically is very longhand. It's very time intensive. And although you might not think that you've got any direct experience in market research, curious people do it all the time. If you want to understand people's views and opinions on a subject matter, you sit around the table in the pub having a chat with your mate. That is a form of market research. Somewhere, someone's being paid to facilitate that, record it, transcribe it, squeeze it down, and here's the nuggets of what you want.
Right.
Of the discussion. That's the premise of market research. In terms of what's hot, it's been due for tech disruption, and looking at it through agile approaches for years and years, because it's dominated, like many industries, by a small number of very large companies who take 80% of the wealth.
Right.
And then a long tail of smaller companies who are more boutique in their approach, or more specialized. So over the course of the last 6-7 years, in terms of how those things, interviews, like sort of we're doing here, how those things traditionally happen, which is like, traditionally, literally, you would book one after another, get in a car or a train or a plane and go and have that, and then send that recording off to somebody who would transcribe it. And, really mind-boggling ancient approaches that you thought, well, that's how they did it in the 60s. No, that's how they did it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And some of the industry still does. But clearly, Christ, open your eyes. There's a million technologies wrapped around us now that are freely available and easy to engage with, that can speed up all that lot. And when you package them in the right way, you pull API chains together, and you plug into technologies that are excellent at doing stuff, and allow people to consume those things in platforms, browser-based, in an easy, intuitive UI, then actually you can change all sorts of stuff, can't you?
So you've set me up really nicely. You should be the interviewer, actually. You set me up really nicely. So, alternate universe, 6.5 years ago, you've taken a slightly different trajectory. I'm Doug Leone from Sequoia Capital. Carl, pitch me LivingLens. Why is LivingLens going to disrupt this industry? What's your product? What are you doing?
6 years ago?
6.5. Or whenever you're doing your seed.
Right. I wouldn't be sat down, definitely. So, stories drive change. How do you tell great stories? You get people to tell them for you, right? But the technology of which you can deploy that to decision makers in large organizations doesn't exist. That's what LivingLens is. It allows people to change business approaches through telling their stories and getting those stories in front of the decision makers. Actually, if you do that at scale, what we can also do then is understand all of the stories. Not just one story, not drive a motive change once. We can understand all customers and use that to drive coherent change that sticks and makes a massive difference to your products, to your services, the experiences that you deliver. That would be get out the elevator.
There's something in that. You can see there's a level. Yeah, that's why.
And do you know what though, right? So,
see how passionate he got though when he said that?
Yeah. We'll get onto this subject maybe. Right. That I've always been all right with standing up and having a chat or telling stuff. That shit is a learned skill.
Yeah.
Right. It's not magic. It's not something that's just for the sort of gifted few. Pitching is a learned skill. It is a paint by numbers learned skill that you do again and again and again and again and hear bad feedback and lots of no's, and you get better and better and better at it. It's a learned skill. I don't care what anyone says. Anybody who has raised money or anybody who has landed deals and had to do that in front of audiences, you get better every single time you do it. And there's formula for it. There are things to do and not to do. I wasn't pulling on that when I did that then. I was just doing my thing. But, people think it's some mythical art, but you can do it, and you can do it well, and you can learn how to do it well.
Absolutely. You also touched on another interesting point about one of your co-founders. So I think you referenced Peter, who was your CTO.
LivingLens was me, and my co-founder was David right. Woods.
Oh, that was it, yeah.
And neither of us were techies. David was basically ops and execution. Right. He owned product, he owned tech during the journey we were on. We built a large team of world-class developers and technologists and product experts. But that's what he owned, and I was I was the jazz hands, I was the market
Right.
facing, I was the go-to-market, the sales, the marketing, the strategy, the fundraising, you know.
Yeah.
And he did the proper job, he did the hard yards.
Right. Because I mean, this might be a good reason to maybe we'll get our first CTO interview up and we'll get David up here. But any insight about what was it like, kind of having the tech side like run by a CTO who's not specifically a technical background? That's pretty novel.
Yeah. Yeah, God. So V1 of LivingLens was the money that David and I could scrape together. We paid a freelance developer in Sheffield to build V1 to our wireframes that we sort of learned how to wireframe badly. And it worked of sorts, but if 3 people used it, it would stop working. It's all right if 2 people used it, but if 3 people used it concurrently, it stopped working.
You want to see the GDPR Defender tech stack? Where's Rich?
But we use that to get a few very oddly paid projects, and we used it to really properly get stuck into product market fit and use it as a prototype that we could talk to engaged potential customers about how we could develop this to fit their needs and solve their problems. And most importantly, we used it to hustle our way onto an accelerator that was in London called Collider. Actually, I'm going to take a step back from that. We had the idea that this thing would solve problems and people would pay for it. It didn't exist.
Right.
We had 20 grand, and we knew we were going to burn through that, and indeed we did. That was the budget for the developer, and we went to market. We tendered for it, and the developer that won it was the only one that could meet our budget. That's how that, it was a very price-led process. But we realised that we were going to need to raise money, and neither of us had any experience whatsoever of raising capital. Went to the bank, computer says no. Now what? There was, at the time, there was a government-funded course called Growth Accelerator, I think it was called. And there was a module on it called Access to Finance, or something like that. And you could do it in different cities, and we signed up for it, and we went on it in London, because as well as the learning of equity finance 101, you got the network and you got introduced to some like mentors and stuff, and through that's how we found out that there was this world that we still today call Narnia. There's a massive amount of equity capital available that's pretty much London centric, that will invest in great people first and foremost, engaged, passionate, knowledgeable people who and their teams to build cool stuff, and that helped us hugely. But it had to be in London because that was the centre of the universe, still is in many ways. But things have changed now. There are, we all know a little bit more now about not bootstrapping and then getting into trying to raise our first pre-seed, and then can we raise some more money, and then which audiences can we get that from, and who's in this part of the world. But it still remains that you need that access, those pathways, that capital to be able to build a business.
Yeah.
So to come back to answer your question in terms of the process that went through. So we hustled our way onto this accelerator. That gave us £100,000 worth of investment. Through that, we then engaged with an external agency to build V2. And through that painful process, we realised that actually we needed development to be a core competency of our business.
Yeah.
And that was an incredibly painful process. And we consequently brought our first developer on, our second, and built our own team, and we ended up with a team of a dozen developers based here. The other thing that we did that enabled that was we were looking at, well, where should we be based from? We were based at home. My previous business, Curiosity, was based out towards Speak. We were looking at, well, how far can we make our money go? We were looking at offices in Kirby. Should we come into town? Should we not come into town? It's miles away, and then of these things that we were looking at, there was Baltic, and that's one of the enablers, one of the best decisions that we ever made in terms of trying to build our team, trying to build our knowledge, our network, our confidence. So we took a couple of hot desks in Basecamp, and then grew the team and grew through the businesses, the different size offices and stuff. Met loads of people who were supportive along the way. Mark, Laura, and the Baltic guys continue to be hugely supportive of what we're trying to do. And that was a big part of our story and our learning. So David didn't have any tech knowledge, but he applied himself massively to acquiring enough to have credible conversations and understand problems.
Yeah.
And then we put lots of trust in our team and our process actually as well.
There's so many lessons in there to unpick. And Mark Lawler, of course, the news came out last week that Mark's actually moving on from Baltic. I mean, that's big shoes to fill. That man has done an incredible amount to advance the digital, creative and tech sectors in the Liverpool City region and beyond, even down to helping me get this space for these events. So hats off and good luck to him. It really kind of sounds like a little bit like, I mean, obviously I'm sure there were bumps in the road, but a little bit like the stars aligned. You mentioned as you grew, you had different spaces in there. And how did you find putting together that team? You and David building out as the product develops. You talk about some of those pains with realizing that a dev shop or a software agency can get you so far, but eventually that product needs to be in-house. You've got to own that. You need to own that development, and that's something that other guests here and even people at conference last week, that's something that comes up again and again. I know some fantastic people who run brilliant software agencies that have churned out incredible products and teams, but it does seem to be a common pain point for startups. If not anything else, just the in-housing of the product and the development team around it. What was it like going from you and David to then with a version 2 to then a fully fledged team to then something that was eventually acquired by Medallia?
Yeah, so for me, I think this word culture, like people. I remember in the early days, and even in the later days, people would say sort of, what's your culture like? And I have answers to that, but the word culture for me is such an alien concept in terms of day-to-day conversation. But actually, the more time and energy we spent in building the business, it became all about culture. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is it's about the values of the people who you bring into your family, who you bring into this team. Are they aligned enough that we can all share in this together and all work really, really hard and spend the majority of our lives doing that and feel good about it? So LivingLens, from its early days, and I'll give you some examples in a minute, we brought together, so we weren't a big company, there was about 30 of us by the time that we exited. And we had small office. We had an office in Liverpool, which is where engineering was, but we also had an office in London, Toronto and New York, which is where clients were. And we would have had more if we were planning a West Coast office as well. And maybe something in Asia as well. But all those people, and we were pretty diverse as a team in terms of like cultural backgrounds and the diversity, and there were more women than men in the business. You know, so both David and I believe you need a lot of different types of vibe to make stuff interesting. You know, otherwise, we ended up with, Christ, imagine having 20 versions of yourself all working together. I mean, that was the dullest, most, I don't know. So that isn't what we wanted. But interestingly, all of those people were bound by the same set of values. How could that be? How could that be when there's lots of different religions and sexes and from people from all over the world? It's because what we used to do when we were going through the interview process was spend time. It wasn't just answer these questions. It was very much, well, let's get to, it's a two-way street. Let's get to know each other. Invariably, we go out for food and drinks, or you know, some people didn't drink, or we just go out and spend a good time together, or we go out for a big walk, or we go out and we took the team camping once, and there were some potential recruits in there as well. And fundamentally, we were bound by, forget about the work ethic, we'll come back to that. Everyone's got work ethic, or you haven't. We were bound by honesty, right? I mean, honesty, so like it might be uncomfortable. Humour, self-depreciating humour, and so much so that, you know, if you came into that environment and it wasn't your thing, it might be a bit uncomfortable. I don't mean like it was inappropriate humour. It was just there's not a lot of it all the time. The ability to support one another. Doesn't matter whether it's in your job or not. Somebody needs some help. Don't wait to be asked for that.
Yeah.
What do you want to get involved in? What do you want your life to be? What do you want your role to be? There's no edges around it. What we have this need now. Come and be a part of this. Yeah. Not that part, this part. You know, so be part of the whole. So those types of things, it's not always easy to find them through the process of interview, but it's certainly easy to find it through the process of spending time with people in the workplace for a relatively short amount of time, and to top all that off, work your arse off. You know, but that's almost a given, isn't it? That's what you want from everybody. But in the same breath, they say work your arse off, but make sure you have a work-life balance. You know, which continues to be everybody's struggle. Yeah. So when you've got that set of values that you know, and what I mean by that is, so I call it culture, but right, what do you reckon? Think Floss is right for the team? I don't know, but let's spend some time with Floss rather than just deciding in 45-minute interview and then in she comes. Let's say, Floss, can you take a week's holiday from your job? Come and spend some time with us. Some of it will be properly doing the job and stuff, but let's spend some time together.
Yeah.
And then you arrive at a place that actually, I'd quite like to spend 60% of the rest of my waking time for the next 5 years together with these people.
Yeah.
We did that again and again and grew the team. I'm not saying we got it right all the time. We got it wrong often, but we got it right a fair slice as well. So it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
That, you know, that's really useful. So, you know, Rich, instead of doing assessment centres and interviews, we're going to take people camping with us. Like, there's no way on this planet I'm going camping with you. That is true. I mean, you strike on a few things there. Like, one, most of us are in work more than we're at home. You know, like you spend more time around people. Maybe that's changed a little bit now with like hybrid and remote, but okay, well, you just through a MS Teams instance or a Zoom call with those people instead of being physically with them. But you still spend a lot of time with those people, and people can fake a 45-minute interview. I think we've probably all faked a 45-minute interview. Like, what are your competencies? I'm a team player and a people person. It's like, no, I go home and lock myself in my room and play World of Warcraft. So that is good. That is out there. Whether corporates will ever get around to doing camping hiring, I don't know, but I hope they do. So
I remember another guy.
Go on.
We went to Bongo's Bingo as a team, and there were a couple of people who we thought, yeah, you're right for the team. Is the team right for you? Come out with us. One joined, one didn't.
Right. That's telling.
Yeah.
Was it the one that liked tequila?
Yeah, probably like. Yeah. He fell down the entire escalator at Central Station that night before he'd even started working with us, and we didn't find out for 2 years. It's only 2 years later. Yeah, that's not a good story. I probably shouldn't have said that, should I? It's going to be on YouTube, isn't it? You know who you are, mate. You know who you are.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
I wouldn't necessarily do that one again, though. I think that was probably wrong to invite them to Bongo. It was a bit too intense.
Yeah, well, you got to experiment, haven't you? So, a lot of people here run businesses, and a lot of people are in that the grind, the startup grind of shipping product, refining product, doing that iterative process with product, building sales, usually through subscription. And you do enough of that. The idea is that eventually, if you've got the right factors, you'll find success. You've done the thing that most people aspire to, but don't quite get to, which is to be acquired. So that's something that really sets you apart. What did that feel like? How did that come about? Did you always think, right, we're going to start this to be acquired, want to make a bit of money, or what was it?
Yeah. So I now spend a fair amount of time talking. Working with different businesses, help them solve problems in different ways, and this is a thing, right? So David and I, we founded LivingLens to sell it within 5 to 7 years was the plan, but we were very naive when we said that. For $100 million or more to make money, it was always the plan.
Yeah.
And whilst that was naive, it's very helpful to have founders who are all on the same page about what they want as a goal. It turns out it's not as common as you think.
Right.
Well, it's not as common as I think anyway. And then when you get to the stage, so it's great to have that, and mainly the only time you talk about that is when you're talking to investors, or potential investors, because the rest of it is the day job of building the product and trying to win orders and engaging your customers and getting them to renew and buy more, because you whether it be land and expand, but you're developing your products to drive that cycle and that growth, and scaling your team with great people. I think that's so time consuming, isn't it? So there comes a point where actually you have a product or several, you have customers who are paying you money, and actually we're on this road. If we raise money, we can do these things. We can do these things faster. And so from relatively early, from within the first couple of years, we would regularly look at, right, who are our possible exit markets? Why on earth would they buy us? How are we going to build relationships with them? Which of them can become customers? I want to say regularly. I don't mean we probably do it 3 times a year. But we had that as a guide to what we wanted to be, and also very importantly, what we didn't want to be. What we said we chose. When we were in product market fit, there are lots of things that we could have done with video technology that allows you under the hood, the technical stuff of LivingLens. So basically, we had facial recognition. So we could understand your emotions and your emotional expressions. We did voice recognition, so we could machine transcribe in about 40 languages. And we had object and context, so where you are, what you're doing. And that produces big data sets, and you can do cool stuff with a lot of data. And oh, by the way, you can put emotive people in front of the CEO to make them, change direction. But we had really good data and really good tech to manipulate that and get the most out of it. So I completely forgot what I was talking about.
So the acquisition part, like.
Oh, well, there you go. Right. So, one of our investors, and all the charts go the right way. We never hit forecast, but that's because we always forecast this much. But every year we were doing at least 200% growth, and the last 2 years we did sort of like 70 and 82 or something like that, even in tough environments. So we always grew strongly, but one of our investors said to us when we were like 3 and a bit years into our journey, you keep saying this 100 million plus target. Why? Well, because that's what we've told you the last 2 raises. So if we changed that number, that's not going to, unless we went a bigger number, then you'd be concerned. And David and I, we never wanted to IPO. We never wanted to build a legacy. We never wanted to have a 100-year company or whatever. So he said, and he's a very wealthy guy, he said, right, and this is good advice. If you've got ambition to build a business, sell it, make a load of money, this is good advice. And I don't very often give advice with an A, because I think everybody's experiences are very, very different, right? But this is advice with an A. Sit down and work out, what is it that you materially want, right? If you want swimming pools, movie stars, super yachts, 4 houses, private jets, cool, write that down, and you are going to have to go and build a unicorn. Now, I don't want that. Most people don't want that. Write down the shit you want. Write down, you want a nice house. You want, this is me giving you my list. Maybe another house. Lovely holidays. I want to be financially secure in terms of maybe I don't want to have to work if I don't want to. I want to be able to pay for my kids' education if I want to go down that road. I want them to be able to feel that they've got financial security. That sounds like a shitload of money, right? You can put numbers on that. And then work out how much, if you had a pot of money, is that going to make, is that going to return you by just being in a safe but well-managed place year in, year out? So that's like 5%, say. And then you can literally work out, well, I want this much money. And it's a relatively involved process, and it completely changed how much money we want to sell the company for, which was exactly that number, coincidentally. And it wasn't necessary, in terms of its multiple on revenue, we got a very, very good multiple because we got the number that we wanted. But it changed. That last 2 years, we stopped talking about what we were going to be in the future, and we started talking about, right, we've got 12 quarters to achieve our goal.
Right. And
we lowered the bar. We didn't say it was that to the team, because everybody in the team, everybody in LivingLens owned a slice of LivingLens. That was a big part of what we were doing together. But we changed our ambition and we turned it into a targeted goal that removed all the noise, made us very, very focused, held us. We got very accountable with each other as a management team. Every quarter, outside of business as usual, each of us would have an additional project if we thought we had the bandwidth, and you had to deliver on that because it was moving us towards our 12 quarters goal. Yeah. That's a very, very long, winding answer to that question that I can't even remember now, but hopefully that was
just to riff on it. Look, now, if there's any actuarial accountants out there who can help me work out how much money I need to sell for to make Lana Del Rey fall in love with me, hit me up. No, that's really useful, because I think, as you mentioned before, I don't want to say it's common knowledge, because people still make mistakes, and this, it's one of the reasons that why there are so many accelerators and programs and stuff. But it's generally easier to access the knowledge now about how do I make a deck? How do I pitch to an investor?
Yeah.
What's CAC? What's LTV? What are these metrics? How do I get to like Series A? Who do I go to? Who's good? But that bit about being acquired is still a bit of a dark art because so few people get there, for whatever reason, whether it be the business failure, business death, or it turns into a lifestyle business, or they hold on to it. That still seems to be the part that's dominated by all these like M&A, PE people.
But it needs to be a formalized strategy.
Yeah.
It can't just be something that continues to be down the road of a successful company. At some stage, you need to decide, right, our goal as a business is this. In the same way as you would say, these are the top 10 customers these are our top 10 perfect customers if we could get them.
Yeah. Let's
go and get them. How are we going to do that? You work that out. You should work that out. So we work that, and remember, a massive slice of luck. It sounds like I've got a playbook, and you say, there you go, I'll do it again. Christ knows whether I could do it again, but I'd take the same approach again. It was process-led, and it was goal-led, and it was focused.
That's genuinely got to be one of the most useful insights and one of the more unique insights that I've certainly heard in this room. But even going to major tech conferences and startup, like that bit just does not seem stated enough that you've just highlighted. I'm going to move us on towards the audience Q&A. But so you had a very handsome exit. I remember the video you did. Yeah.
That wasn't our planned exit.
Right.
Our planned exit would have been another 18 months. That was our time horizon ish, and 50 million.
Right.
Which would have involved at least one more big raise with a big dilution. Yeah. But we might get into that in Q&A.
That's fine. I remember the video you did jogging down Otterspool promenade.
Yeah.
The happiest man I've ever seen jogging down Otterspool. I'm not happy when I'm jogging down there.
Yeah. I just wanted some quiet time on a sunny day to just think. Because there's so much noise. Yeah. Getting to that point, the actual process of the DD and the legals, and that's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, with so much on the line, trying to hide it from everybody in the business, except the four of us who were in the know, and we pulled it off. And so I just.
That's the highest.
I just wanted to take some time. Yeah. And then I wanted to say thank you, and I thought, well, do you know what? I've got roughly what I want to say. Yeah. Or I can feel it in me. I'll just say some stuff, and I just thought, well, I'll do it now.
Why not?
So for those who haven't seen it, I went for a big run, and I got a bit emotional and said thanks, and we've done it and stuff at the end on a sunny day, on the Otterspool prom.
I always, for some reason, it's that video that sticks in my head. And that I just associate with the start of the lockdown. So, not to curse you, I will say that it's bad. My life took a drastic turn during those few months of lockdown, but I always associate your video with kicking it off. So thanks, Carl. Thanks very much. And of course, now that you've exited, you've gone on a little bit of a journey since then. First within LivingLens as part of Medallia. Now you're actively investing. Just talk a little bit about that for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so when we were bought, lockdown hit the world. The world changed. Medallia, the deal was the deal, but Medallia asked me to stick around, and I thought it'd be really interesting to work for a proper big Silicon Valley tech company. You said something before we started when we were just having a little chat, which was you went to one of the presentations you saw last week. The only slide used had normalize American ambition.
That was it in one.
Yeah. And so I experienced firsthand the ambition of a giant tech company with limitless resources. Take my baby, my company, and and turn it into a rocket ship. And I was at the heart of that with them, working with so many incredibly smart, incredibly humble people, doing things a bit differently to what I'd experienced. But surprisingly, it was also a lot like LivingLens.
Yeah.
I expected it to be like polished process, dull process.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was just like LivingLens on steroids, really. But fueled by ambition.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Albeit in an environment where it was very, very difficult for lots of people. And so I was incredibly thankful for that. And then it got to the stage where, well, that was fun and I want to do something different now. So David and I, and with a number of other people, have started sort of helping businesses make less mistakes than we made. That's the aim. We made so many mistakes. We burned through so much money that we didn't need to. We went down so many cul-de-sacs and dead ends, and that was very difficult. But you know what? There's a load of stuff here that we wouldn't do again, and so hopefully we're now working with businesses who we can help grow and avoid some of those mistakes. And alongside that, we've invested in a bunch of businesses so far over the course of the last couple of years, and that's now starting to coalesce around something that I know that you know about, Johnny, and are heavily involved in as well, which is something really exciting that hopefully is coming at the start next year, which is a Baltic Ventures seed fund and accelerator program, and having pathways for early stage businesses to be successful, find routes into large organizations who want to work with disruptive technology startups, and pathways to capital as well. So Claire over there is leading the charge on it for us with a bunch of us who are trying to make this happen, and we're hoping to have some lots to talk about and shout about in the course of the sort of second half of this year and beyond. So lots of energy going into that, and hopefully it'll be something that's valuable and exciting for this city and for our communities. Clyde, this thing that the LivingLens was part of in London changed the game for us in lots of different ways. It gave us access to knowledge, access to networks, which is so important, access to people who've been there and done it, access to corporates who are willing to spend actual real money on working with us rather than wasting time, and pathways to capital. Yeah. And we can bring that to this part of the world. And there are others. There's some of the great people and teams that are starting to invest in businesses in our city. We can bring more of that, then it can make something long lasting and positive for the future. So it's easier to start businesses with great ideas. It's easier to build teams. It's easier to scale and be successful. So yeah. I'm doing a bit of that at the moment, which is fun.
That sounds very fun. And before we go to Q&A, just some final parting words for a little bit of advice maybe for the younger entrepreneurs, or not necessarily younger, but the entrepreneurs who are at the earliest stage of their business life cycle. If you could condense it, as much as it's a bit of a hard thing to do, 3 points or something, what would you take forward to encourage them and help them to be where they want to be?
That's a hard question, that, isn't it? The world's full of good ideas. There's so many good ideas. You've got to turn that idea into something. You've got to find some way to create something and demonstrate to other people particularly those who, you're looking for investment fundamentally, aren't you, when you're at the very early stage, or if you're very lucky, you're looking for a customer because you've been able to build something or consult or something. You've got to show the resilience and the will and the commitment and the creativity and the hustle and the fight to turn that idea into something. And that goes such a long way to demonstrating to those with capital that you have all those things. That would be one, which is a shitty lesson to learn, I guess. But, the world's full of good ideas. Turn your idea into action. 2, my co-founder we're actually cousins, and I'm a few years older than David, but we've known each other forever. We didn't actually tell anybody that, and indeed, even people in LivingLens, until the last couple of years, we didn't keep it a secret, but we just didn't make a thing. We just didn't want it to be a nepotism thing. But we knew each other really well, and we've got very complementary skill sets. So he is detail, execution to time and budget. I am hustle and big ideas and energy and find somebody who you can be in the trenches with, who you can count on, that can do different stuff to you, because then you can rely on each other to do different stuff. Because you're gonna need to sort of divide and conquer. That's hard, but if you both got exactly the same skill sets, it'll be harder to build a business. So that would be 2. 3. Don't give up. No is just another reason to give it that when you get a yes. Because you're going to hear no again and again and again and again, because for all the reasons, most people who say they invest don't invest, right? Some people do, and it's their money, so they should be really picky. They've worked their asses off to have that money, probably, or they're in charge of other people's money, and it's important that they make the right decisions. So their job is to find the holes in stuff. Someone, if you keep going, will find the belief in you and what you're trying to do, but you're going to get a shitload of no's before you find the yes. You've got to keep going, be brave, and just be resilient and keep going. Don't give up. There's 3. I think maybe they're both the same things, but crossover. But
Startup Grind Liverpool, please put your hands together for Carl Wong.